right, I am back with This Week at Tassi, my weekly news roundup program. It is still a holiday week. It was New Year's Eve and New Year's this week. But after taking Christmas off, I figured there was probably still enough stuff to talk about from this week to make a video, a roundup of what's been going on, what I'm playing, and so on. I'll start with my main game, Destiny. There was not exactly news this week, but I did write an article that seemed to resonate with some people about how 2025 is kind of the year where we see whether or not Destiny can survive. I know that we go through this whole make or break thing with Destiny all the time. This is a little bit different in the sense that we are now both beyond the Light and Darkness saga after the release of the final shape. We've had a stretch of episodes which expectedly have resulted in the lowest player count in the game's history. And then we are moving into a totally different model as of next year, where it's going to be these two smaller expansions, Apollo and Behemoth. Yeah, that's what they're called. And then these monthly, quarterly updates. There's 4 of them. So instead of seasons, they're doing these different updates with new weapons and changing out the ritual activities, but they're not seasons in the traditional sense. It's a big year because we need to understand just how much of the Destiny player base is retainable. The game pretty much peaked concurrently with the final shape. It would have peaked concurrently were there not a bunch of technical issues like right at launch there. And again, it has crashed all the way down to the lowest player count possible. A lot of people just sort of drew a line that this is the end of the game for them and moved on. I personally, this is the least I played Destiny over a stretch of 6 months or so in a very, very long time. I usually go pretty hard right when the episode launches and then during the acts, but not lately. I did not show up for the Dawning at all. Like, for instance, like something like a holiday event is just blowing right by me. I can't bring myself to. There's just no real motivation. Next week is the beginning of Act 3, and we will see what we'll come back to. But the real test, I think, in 2025 is figuring out just how much percentile retention that these new, smaller expansions can do. They are going to be, I guess, in between the size of something like an episode and a full expansion. I would say closer to a full expansion because we are getting like an actually new destination. There will be one raid, and then I think one dungeon, like not for each one, but for the whole year. I think that's what we established here. Everyone was thinking it was like 2 raids and 2 dungeons or something, but I that's not what's going to happen. And you know, we're expanding outside the solar system and going to new places with new threats and a new arc and stuff. But it's tough. It's tough to lure people back. And every time we talk about what can save Destiny, the answer is the same. It's Destiny 3, something that we have zero indication is coming. Inside reporting, my sources, nobody says anyone is doing anything with Destiny 3. It's talked about like as a theoretical idea, you know, but that's it. So if this starts out like relatively weak and is not really anywhere close to the level of the other expansions, that is sort of a dire sign here. And things are only going to get worse because they're going to ease off the gas and put more stuff on Marathon, because that is going to be launching, they say, in 2025, almost assuredly 2026. And then that's even less resources. So it's this balance of, can they balance spending less on content with not losing so many players that they're still losing money? They might end up in the same situation as before, and Destiny's just a much smaller game, but it's making and or losing the same amount of money. So that it's a big question mark, and I don't know if it's just like a disastrous period of time where no one shows up for these little bonus expansions in any meaningful capacity. This idea that this is what Destiny's going to do for the next 3, 4, 5 years, whatever, I think that is on the table. And I do not think it is outside the realm of possibility that they stop making this new Destiny content and they put it in maintenance mode until either they're just moved on to other projects entirely, or they do in fact plan for a big return to Destiny with a full sequel or something later. So very important year. Make or break. Yeah, but this is a different situation than before, so I think it's more relevant. This is not only a Destiny video, so I will keep going here. There was a report this week from admittedly pretty nebulous sourcing that the Switch will be able to have power. Sorry, the Switch 2, the sequel console, will be able to have power akin to a PS4 Pro, as opposed to like a PS3-ish essentially right now. The caveat there is that the PS4 Pro idea would be in docked mode, and then like more normal PS4 tech would be in handheld mode. There were people saying that it's crazy that, you know, the Switch would come out next year or whatever and be using tech that is from a system that's 10 years old. I don't buy that at all. That my takeaway from this is that if a Switch 2 can perform at PS4 level handheld and PS4 Pro level docked, that's a big win for Nintendo. I feel like people don't really remember that, you know, the PS4 Pro, original PS4 era is not like insanely different than now. Like certainly, yes, there's some upgrades, but the gap between console generations, like 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, is getting smaller and smaller in terms of capabilities. So if you can get a handheld running consistently decent PS4 level graphics, like that is an accomplishment. And like, how many times do we have to say that it's friggin' Nintendo? It doesn't matter what the power is. The Switch 2 can, you know, or the Switch 1 is like horribly underpowered and has been for years. And it is also now the third best-selling video game piece of hardware of all time, behind PS2 and the DS. And it might pass the DS. So it doesn't matter. Sometimes this just sucks because ports are just like abysmal, and things like the Pokemon games aren't even trying to make games look good. But most of the time it doesn't matter. You're playing the stylized graphics of Nintendo, so you know these visual fidelity issues you come across are not nearly as important. And obviously the Switch has been just an enormous hit for all these years now, and I would not expect the Switch 2 to be any different. Even if this specific rumor is not like, it can barely even be a rumor, because like of course the minimum is going to be PS4, considering it's like closer to PS3 now. It's not going to be like first gen PS3 upgrading to late gen PS3. Like it will have to be a significant difference. My question for Nintendo is whether they will be properly able to convey this. I do not want to see them running into a Wii U situation where they had a disastrous launch of a second console, in part because the general public had no idea what the hell it was, and they thought they were buying like a weird accessory for the current Wii or something. And like, you know, it had other issues, but that was a pretty core problem. So if Nintendo comes out and calls this like the new Switch Plus Pro something, like they need to just call it like the Nintendo Switch 2, or at the very least like the Super Nintendo Switch, something to differentiate it as a fully new console generation. Will they do that? I don't know. This is not exactly their strong suit, but it's clear that almost assuredly this is going to be a huge hit no matter what power level it's running. And if it is running that power level, that's a big win. Marvel Rivals. I want to circle around to this because this game is just destroying everything. It's crazy. It's putting up 400,000 concurrent players a night just on Steam. Last I looked, it's in the top 10 for both PS5 and Xbox 360. Why would I say that? Xbox Series X, and that would be impressive if it's running on 360. And that's you know, alongside games like Fortnite and Roblox and GTA. Like, so if we're talking about like new games here, it is essentially one of the top games, especially as a brand new IP here. And this is clearly demonstrating power to stick around. The big news item I wrote about today that happened yesterday is Season 1 is starting next Monday. And NetEase just announced that they are releasing all members of the Fantastic Four in Season 1, probably at launch, I think. Like, I don't know if they'll spread them out, but it's pretty wild for a game in the hero genre, whatever it is, to release 4 new characters. This is joining a roster of 33 characters, which is already enormous, in a single season. I believe that this was planned out well ahead of time. This isn't like, oh, they busted their ass since launch, and you know, they wanted to have a big seasonal debut like this to impress people, and this has really impressed people, and show that they are going to keep adding a lot of substantive content to the game. We've seen other games try to do this in the past, where they have all these big content plans of like what's going to launch really close to launch or for the first season. But a lot of the time what happens is that there's all these technical issues or all these unforeseen problems, and they have to like push everything back because it takes 3 months, 6 months, whatever to fix it. And like sometimes that's live games, sometimes it's games with DLC. But in this case, Marvel Rivals is like, yeah, we're cooking, a couple weeks later, here's 4 heroes and a fantastic 4 themed season. The question is, compared to its rivals, Overwatch, I said Overwatch does a new hero every season. People are like, no, they don't even do that. They do one every other season. So it's really kind of blowing its competition away in that regard. Is it going to continue to have 4 characters a season? My guess is no. Looking over the leaked list of characters, my guess is 2 per season, because the ones that are listed like really are linked to each other. So like we have Emma Frost and Jean Grey, both being X-Men. We have Angela and Valkyrie, both being Asgardians. Something like Hitmonkey and Deadpool seem like they would probably be together. And there's a few of these where they seem like pairs. And clearly, if they're doing a Fantastic Four season, and like most live service seasons, there's probably going to be a theme. So I'd be amazed if it was like, oh, here's a 4 batch of Jean Grey, Ultron, Blade, and Hitmonkey. Like I think they're going to try and stay on theme here. So that to me says they're probably doing 2 characters a season. So I guess we'll see. And some people think Ultron's going to come this season too. Who knows? Anything's possible with this game, but big hits, really, really crushing it. And I'm very curious. This seems like it's going to have very long legs, which is cool to see in the genre because that never happens anymore. Last story of the week. Goddamn Wukong. This friggin' Wukong story will not die. Okay. To recap the whole thing, everyone was wondering why Black Myth Wukong never came to Xbox. No one was really talking about it. I said Game Science came out and said they were having some optimization issues. I reported that. Immediately was contacted by a very knowledgeable source, which is all I ever say. It's driving me nuts. That it was not because of technical problems. It was because of a unpublished exclusivity deal of some sort with Sony. I eventually dragged a statement out of Microsoft that said it does not have to do with hardware limitations on our ends, and we're not going to comment on deals made by other platform holders. More recently, Jez Corden of Windows Central said that he's saying that they were shown an exclusive, Microsoft has shown an exclusivity deal, and they believe one exists, even though no one is talking about it. But then meanwhile, we circle back around to a new Game Science statement where they are saying, it's the director of the game saying that they are sad that it didn't come to Xbox. And he's saying that like the Series X very limited memory is hard to work with unless you have like years worth of optimization experience. So that started this whole thing off again. And there are all these headlines about confirmed as the Series X or Series S is the issue for Wukong. And like, Microsoft and Game Science will not stop contradicting each other. This happened before, and now it's just happening again. The weird thing about this is, everyone's like, oh, you lied about the exclusivity deal. No one has denied an exclusivity deal. Like, Sony has not denied one. Game Science has not denied one. There was nothing in that statement about that. And multiple things can be true. There could have been a 3-month deal or a 6-month deal that's about to expire, whatever. And they can still be just having really bad problems with Series S optimization, which I can certainly buy because the Series S kind of sucks. And no one has come out definitively to say one way or the other. There was this report a long time ago that the quote unquote deal may have been, Sony steps in and helps pay for all the porting optimization work and gets some level of exclusivity in return. I've asked Microsoft about this again. They said it was going to take a few days to get back to me. I don't know what's happening here. It sounds like both companies are kind of just dodging around what is actually happening here, where Game Science does not want to talk about, anything but optimization and does not want to deny a deal specifically for whatever reason, whereas Xbox is trying to dance around its own hardware issues and kind of heavily implying that there's a deal in place without, I guess, directly accusing Sony of it, or just, saying things behind the scenes about they know there's a deal, or they've seen there's a deal, or whatever. So I am very annoyed with this whole thing. People keep yelling at me, and it's like, the end result is it's not on Xbox, which sucks for Xbox, and they should have done something better to avoid this, whether it's allow like stepping in to make sure no deal is made and they can, get it at the same time, or figuring out a way to have game science work with their own, optimization to help them out to get something to Series S. Or just scrap this stupid parity thing already, which I guess you couldn't make, an exception just for one game. And they are kind of stuck with it. Like, the Series S is supposed to be a majority of sales of the Xbox, so can't really do that now at this point, and they're kind of stuck with it. I don't know what the end result of this will be. I hope Microsoft makes a declarative statement. I have asked them for a declarative statement instead of, mincing words or whatever. I've asked Game Science. I've asked Sony. They did not get back to me that last time. They have not gotten back to me this time. Very annoying. I am exhausted with this story, and I will keep reporting it as long as there's new information, but my gut tells me this ain't coming to Xbox for one reason or another. Finally, just in terms of what I'm playing, you probably know it is Path of Exile 2. I am kind of done for now. I've said this multiple times, but after, I think I'm an 87 Monk now and an 89 Ranger. I'm farming T15 maps and only dying when something really random or annoying happens to one-shot me. I just don't think there's a whole lot left to really do until they kind of add some more things, change some things, buff some things for a different build. I'm just sort of out of things to do except other than just level yet another class, which I don't really want to play the campaign 2 more times again because you have to do it both times to get to the end game. I really enjoyed it a lot. I think there's certainly endgame problems that remain, and there are very frustrating things that are driving me crazy, like the trials and things. But it's clear that there is a crazy good foundation here in a way that is the kind of thing that propelled the first game to be such a huge success over the long term. And it's very easy to see that this will be a big success over the long term as well. I don't really have any idea when the plan for 1.0 launches here. This is missing a lot of stuff right now. And the updates are not exactly coming in fast and furious in terms of changes and things. So I'm very curious what the next patch will bring. I'll probably do a separate video on that when it happens. It's the holidays, so a lot of slack for that. But certainly in the next few weeks here, I'd expect to see a patch. And I'm really enjoying my time. I just RNG of farming especially gets kind of out of control, like farming and crafting, and I've resolved myself to not use the trading system because I just don't think that's very fun, and it totally changes the game. So it is harder and harder and harder to find upgrades to really boost my characters any further, and I'm kind of out of real goals at the moment because XP just sort of stagnates that high, because if you die at all, you lose a bunch, and it just crawls forward from there. So I don't know. I'm just farming for slightly better gear, waiting for them to patch the trials so they stop being awful. I hate those things so much. But yeah, so that's what I'm playing. Still have to get around to indie. Maybe that is on deck soon. Well, Destiny's launching Act 3 next week, so I got to play that. And although it's adding the exotic quest, but I don't think it's really adding much besides that in terms of activities. Barely any loot. We'll see. And the story mission's gonna be what, 60 minutes, if that, in terms of catching up with the jam-packed content there. And then we'll be talking about what happens in the next episode. So anyway, that is this week at Tassi this week, and I will try and get back to doing these regularly now that it's 2025 and there is more news coming. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.